we talk about baby brain and the like, but it's interesting, the baby brain doesn't apply to things that you're very diligent and good at, things that you're studious with your work. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. So as you can see, I'm sat in the nursery and it's hot. It's hot today. It's hot every day. Being pregnant in the middle of summer, I don't recommend it. If you, and most parents can't time their conception times, but I know I've said to Alex, that's it. If we can have a second one, never in summer, never again. You're already very hot, temperature wise, and you're sweating, everything is on fire. So I was originally going to approach this vlog, put my makeup on, get all dolled up, and the like, and I decided that I wanted to be really comfortable while doing the vlog and also reflect some of the realities of pregnancy, and that some days you don't feel like doing your hair. It's not even that you don't feel like it, you can't be fucked. You can't be bothered with it. I'm not wearing a bra at the moment, and I do apologize for how crass that might seem, but it is so uncomfortable wearing bras that you can't breathe properly. It wouldn't matter how soft they are. It makes me feel like I've got an elephant on my chest, even when they're loose. So I'm at that point where the uterus is a bit higher and my rib cage is being impacted. So, and other than that, I apologize if my breath is a little bit short. That's another fun symptom of pregnancy, is that you struggle breathing, because of course you are sacrificing your oxygen to the placenta, to the baby. So getting stuck into this vlog will be based on personal growth while growing a baby, which is an interesting one. And I want to talk about some of the struggles that I've faced through pregnancy, which you might be aware of already, and how I've tackled them as a woman, as a businesswoman, I guess as well the type of solutions focused mindset that I use in my own work and my lifestyle, which I've translated to pregnancy as well. Not to say that there is a solution for every ailment in pregnancy, but certainly it seems as though one issue will arise with your body. Your body just does some incredible things, and then you'll solve it, and then or you'll manage it, learn how to manage it, and then another one pops up. So you don't get a lot of respite. I think in the 9-month period, I would vouch for most women in saying that the first 5 weeks of pregnancy, when you don't really usually know you're pregnant, are probably the easiest. And then from there, it is definitely something that tests you. But you have to laugh or you'll cry, and you probably will cry as well through pregnancy, because there's, the influx of hormones, and I definitely had a lot of those strong hormones in the first trimester. I'd cry at all sorts of things like animal videos and just random videos of children, babies. I'd have a good teary, and now less so. I'm probably a little bit more irritable now, but that's just, again, part of growing a human and taking up space in your body for such a long period of time. So I guess I'll start with, we all think about pregnancy, we think about all the physical ailments. So things like morning sickness, I had that for about 5 weeks. It stopped and started for a week in that period as well, but it stopped around week 10. Wouldn't say that I'm lucky. I think a lot of people say things like, you're lucky. I think every single person who's gone through pregnancy has had some sort of challenge to a certain degree. So whether they get morning sickness, I'm sure they'll have something else that they struggle with. And then some people are sick all the way through. It's all very different when it stops and starts, when people feel sick, so you can't really use a blanket rule. But it was awful. It was all day sickness, not morning sickness. It was up and down Coming and going in waves was worse when I was tired, so getting more sleep, getting into bed earlier was key, and obviously eating frequent meals, plenty of protein and carbs. Hard to get that protein in when you're not wanting to, like meat. You don't feel like meat, but certainly found ways around that. Found proteins that I could tolerate, carbohydrate sources that were nice and complex, fruits and vegetables, lots of crackers and things. Tried not to eat a large amount of wheat, but certainly when I was eating, whole grains, I was focusing on things that had plenty of folate in them, because we know that we need folate through pregnancy. And I really started to look at things like choline and vitamin B and iron and all of those omega-3s, all of those really essential micronutrients, which we already need on a daily basis, but we need more of throughout pregnancy. So I definitely played around with some pregnancy supplements, started with one that didn't really suit me, made me a bit sick, and then changed. Just knew that I was doing a bit of research into what they can do, and too much iron in a supplement, for example. And so I'm on one now called Kin, and it's great. I have that every day, and I swear by it. So, I mean, other issues, even the lead up to pregnancy as well, we had fertility trouble. So I, had some fertility issues myself, and my partner and I, we didn't have the most compatible fertility in general. So there was a good year and a half where we were not using contraception. We knew that we wanted to conceive. There was a good year of very consciously trying to conceive. So there was, we are trying. Uh, and we tried not to communicate that to other people because it just felt like people would always ask whether we were pregnant yet. So we decided not to do that. 6 months of that 1 year period was very tense. And then the next 6 months, not so much, because we discovered that if we took our minds off of it and did something else, focused on building into a bulk, comp prep, that it would give us something for ourselves that didn't rely upon becoming parents as quickly as possible. And so we fell pregnant the week that I started my cut into my shows, which I was meant to be doing this season, obviously not now. And the first week that Alex started his new job on the Sunshine Coast, it was the same week that we found out we were pregnant. And also, when we conceived, the week we conceived was when I was visiting my dad out at the property in the exact home that I was born in. My father sold it when we were younger, when my parents split, and he actually repurchased it later in life, so a couple of years ago. So by coincidence, I was standing in the kitchen where I was born, and my child was, my little girl was settling into my uterus. She was literally in that 7-day conception period where all the magic happens. So some very serendipitous moments throughout the start of the pregnancy and the timing, obviously. The other issues that I've faced through pregnancy have been very physical, but bladder issues. So obviously, you hear about women needing to go to the toilet quite frequently. I had this interesting disconnect with my bladder where I don't get the urge to need to go to the toilet. It just gets really full and there's a lot of pressure. And the only thing really telling me that I need to go is that my tummy feels full. I don't get that, burning sensation to need to go. So that was something that I just didn't really read much about because I thought the opposite. I thought the pregnant women were the ones that were busting to go all the time, and then basically faced a bit of a issue with pain. If I didn't go every 2 hours, and I had to force myself to go and remind myself to go to the toilet. So that was fun. Still, obviously now I go every 2 hours now, but it was just something I had to navigate with my doctor. Luckily, I'm only up about once in the night to go to the toilet, which is good. So, and that's because I don't get the urge to go. So, but it's just pain, and the baby kicks me if I don't go. um, Metallic taste in the mouth, that definitely came on around the same time as the morning sickness or day sickness, and it was just drinking water at room temperature, so I changed that to a cooler temperature and it made a big difference. Water retention, fluid retention, something that I knew that I was prepared for, but not probably as prepared as I thought with how much I actually got. So, when people say you look like you're glowing or your skin's really supple, you've got more water beneath the surface of your skin, you've got more veins, you obviously like your breasts are enlarged, My legs, for example, the consistency and texture of my legs significantly changed. I could see these big veins, coming through my skin, and my skin looked very different, which was quite confrontational. And even things like circulation issues as well. So my skin has had these like weird white little circulation dots all over them. Um, Again, it's just something that happens through pregnancy, probably more significant when there's temperature changes. Um, what else have we got? Fatigue. So the fatigue is the one I think that, and certainly because I was prepared for the worst in pregnancy, a lot of people do prepare you for the worst. They talk to you about, everything terrible that can happen through pregnancy, and it's an interesting thing. Like, it probably sounds really awful from the way I've described it to you, but you kind of get used to it. Um, but the fatigue was certainly something that hit me in the first trimester for a few weeks, and it was just I was more tired towards the end of the day. But now the fatigue is only really a problem if I don't get a good night's sleep, which would have been normal outside of pregnancy anyway. I'm in my third trimester now, and weirdly, I was like anticipating, to start feeling really sluggish and tired. And I know people will say to me, "Oh, you'll feel it in the last 5 weeks. You'll feel exhausted and all that type of stuff." But um, I've never really been a person who tunes into my exhaustion probably as much as I should. Either that, or it doesn't seem to phase me as much. But um, I'm definitely not as fatigued as I thought it would be. If anything, I find it easy to fall asleep. I sleep quite solidly. My body clock definitely wants to wake me up at 6 a.m. in the morning. I think that's when the baby's circadian rhythm might be set to. But that's okay. We've just been going to bed a bit earlier, and I've been getting used to that. And actually, weirdly enough, prior to pregnancy, I'd probably easily sleep 8.5, 9 hours, and now I'm 8 hours on the dot, and I can't sleep past then. So I'm wired almost, which seems odd because I'm not drinking caffeine. So it's just very, very intriguing. I guess a lot of your maternal instincts kind of start to click in and, kick in, and you become this really fierce human being, is the way I would describe it. Like, people, it's interesting, the concepts and I guess, the notions of mothers um, currently in society is actually quite disappointing. The way that I believe that many people view mothers. Um, we don't have enough respect for women who are mothers going through pregnancy, etc., because their ability to persevere, their resilience, to show up for their children and for themselves when they can, and their family is just phenomenal. It's a superpower. It's incredible to watch what women do, and they're like warriors. That's the way I view mothers. And certainly more now than I did before. I certainly did before. I always viewed mothers as these, amazing people that are just capable of juggling so much. Um, and also those who do achieve, great things with their lives at the same time as raising children. Because I was raised in that environment, so I was raised to understand that. But yeah, I guess you don't really know until you're in the situation yourself. And pregnancy has certainly shown me that, not to be sexist, but men could not do this. They just couldn't. It would irritate the crap out of them. Um, and they'd be too logical about the whole process, I think. And, it's like you're just not prepared for it. So, uh, also things like being pregnant in summer, certainly, it's so hot. It's been awful. Even from the start of pregnancy, the hotter I was, the sicker I felt through the morning sickness. So I had to stay nice and cool. Obviously, you don't want your body temperature getting too high because that's harmful for bub and for you. So I did have a chest infection actually. I got a chest infection in the second trimester. So the morning sickness stopped week 10, and I remember now I had a chest infection that started pretty much straight after that. So I got quite unwell because obviously when you're pregnant, you do have a compromised immune system, and then other things can suppress your immune reactions. So I stopped getting my lip swelling. My arthritis certainly wasn't as bad. But then I got a chest infection and I coughed straight for 2 weeks. It was the most obnoxious cough I think I've ever had. I couldn't breathe while I was sleeping. I was coughing all the time, and I was so concerned about how it was impacting my baby. But I believe it was bronchitis. So There wasn't a lot I could do. I kept sleeping with a steamer. My partner was really good. He'd put me in the hot shower and stuff. But yeah, there was 2 weeks there where I was quite unwell. So, and this is interesting because I think a lot of people might assume about my pregnancy that, when I post things on social media, it's like, yeah, like things are going well. The baby's healthy. It's not about trying to paint the perfect picture of everything is going dandy and my pregnancy is fabulous. And, wee, lucky me. It's more a case that if I was to rattle off all of the symptoms of pregnancy, I think people would get sick of hearing the same shit over and over again. But I like to be the person who sees the good in situations. So when I think about my pregnancy, all of these impacts and these challenges, I think about them, but not on a level where I think that summarizes the pregnancy. I think that it's just part and parcel of it, and um, I don't hold on to it with bitterness and anger. It's, as I said, I have to laugh about it or I'll cry. So there are, I guess, these really nitty gritty parts of pregnancy that have made me feel really strong. And when I post about it, and truly, she is really healthy. Everything is going well. She's facing the right way. It's still weirdly this early. I don't know how, but 30 weeks and she's head down. Um, and everything has, it's been low risk as well. I've had a lot of physical ailments, but I think, most pregnant women do. And that's the thing. I think that it'd be silly of me to think I was special. I'm not special. Every single pregnant woman goes through this, and there are beautiful pictures online, absolutely. But I think a lot of that is that pregnant women want to feel beautiful. They want to, you know, almost like they want to convince themselves, and you need to convince yourself that like it's going to be okay, and that like I'm growing a child, and because if you don't, it can go south really quickly. So I guess much of the happy posts on social media is not about trying to shove in other people's faces how perfect the pregnancy has been. I'm very transparent about things that have happened, but more a case of trying to see the good, which is what I've always tried to do in every situation, no matter how challenging. And in the beginning, it was really hard. It was a mental shift for sure and a physical shift on so many levels. So there was also things like the increasing calorie requirements. So that doesn't happen in the first trimester. I didn't gain any weight at all until about weeks 20, 20, I think. So it could have even been after that. No, I think it was week 20. So you imagine halfway through my pregnancy and I've stayed the same weight, which was not concerning, but because I was bulking prior, so I had plenty of body fat stores to work off, in that my body was using that and she was using the food. And then I started gaining at a good rate after that. And also the delay in popping. I didn't pop until 23, 24 weeks. Prior to that, I barely had a bump, but there was definitely like no bump and then all of a sudden a bump. I have a picture of, 21 weeks, I think, or 22 weeks versus 24, and it's just so notable, the difference. Around that time as well, I found that something that no one really prepared me for, but obviously you get like round ligament pains, you get pain through your uterus because things are stretching and it kind of feels like someone is pulling on a string, like in your muscles. But I had this agonizing pain around my belly button. It was around the mid part of, left side, sorry, mid part of my belly, left side of my belly button. And had a similar pain down low as well. And it felt like my muscles were tearing. And it's interesting because people talk about abdominal separation and they say things like, and I've heard this from a few pregnant women now, but I didn't get abdominal separation. And it is a lie. It's not physically possible for your abdominal muscles not to separate to some extent to be able to fit the growth of your uterus. Your uterus is like 1,000 times, 500 to 1,000 times something bigger than the way where it started. So to fit the baby, your muscles have to part, and there is no way of avoiding abdominal separation. It sounds scary. There are ways to prevent it from being more severe. So I looked into things like what type of abdominal exercises were safe, which ones weren't. Well, not safe, but that safety as well was important. But things like preventing further abdominal separation, additional coning, that type of stuff of the abdominals. And the great thing is that postpartum, you obviously you shouldn't be trying to smash yourself into shape and whip yourself into shape quickly because so many people do that. But you have the opportunity to work on your pelvic floor muscles prior, obviously, which is something I do as well quite frequently. but also working on the rejoining of your abdominals, which they do gradually slowly come back together. And there are, correct exercises and things like that that you can do to try and, allow that repair process to occur. So, and if there is severe abdominal separation, if it's really bad, and it usually is worse in, they say, in women who have a shorter torso or who carry quite high, just because obviously where the pressure is, you can get an operation too. So there's lots of different things that can be on offer there. But that was, I mean, it scared me because I had this pain, and it went away. But then as it went away, I popped, and I realized, oh, that's my abs separating. So I'm not afraid of it. I was very afraid of it, but now I understand that. And the increase in calories, I was talking about that. But in the first trimester, you don't need extra calories, much to what people might think. You might get a kilo or two of fluid increase at that point, but not a lot. You think about it, around 8 to 10 kilos of what we put on is baby fluid, like uh, extra blood volume. So 2 kilos of blood volume, amniotic fluid, the uterus expanding and getting larger, breast tissue increasing. The list goes on. Swelling in the feet, all the type of stuff. So more fluid. And so I don't think the placenta as well, that weighs something, it's an organ that just grows itself inside your uterus. I don't think people realize that when you gain weight through pregnancy and you start gaining weight, especially in the second and third trimester, is where most of that weight gain will happen, and it slows down towards the end of the third, is that a lot of it is baby and fluid and organ tissue and breast tissue, which is not body fat. So there's always that worry, I think, that women have, that they're gaining crazy amounts of body fat, but there are recommended weight gain ranges, and it's generally that kind of 10 to 15 kilo mark. Um, and things like getting tests all the time, being tested for, um, like, any pregnant woman will understand this. The amount of appointments you have to go to, holy shit, midwife appointments and OB appointments and obstetrician and antenatals and feeding classes, and it's just a lot. It's a lot. It feels like, certainly in the beginning, that you get this big influx of information, and then other people are trying to add more information on top of that. And so it is very nice and helpful to have people inbox you and try and help you. But by the same token, there is just a surplus of information out there that it gets to a point where sometimes you want to close the door and you just want to let little bits in at a time, because it can be a little bit much, especially for first time parents. We're now at a point where, like, a lot of things make sense to us, but it was very difficult in the beginning. And even now, occasionally I'll get messages in inboxes like, don't forget this and don't forget that and don't forget this. And it's like, well, if you knew me well enough, you'd know I'm so meticulous that I have not forgotten anything. The nursery is complete. It has absolutely everything in it that we could possibly need for her, including things that, we may not need or we may need or whatever, but we just kind of have it there. Um, and the only thing I haven't actually got, and I'm not going to get until I give birth, is big maternity pads and things, and underwear, because I don't know whether or not I'll end up having a natural birth. And so this is the stuff that I will tackle as it comes, because I don't want to go spending money on, you know, all this stuff for a natural vaginal birth, or what we say is a vaginal birth now, and then I might end up having a C-section because I just need to have one. So I keep a very open mind with these types of things. I don't box myself into certain concepts, because I'm a big believer in, where there is a will, there is a way, and certainly that there is more than one way to achieve an end result. So obviously I increased my food second and third trimester. Look, the calorie requirements can range because it depends on the person's metabolic rate, etc. But it can be anywhere from an additional 300-400 calories a day in the second trimester, and then obviously the third trimester, it's 400 to 500 calories extra than your usual maintenance calories. So, and also you burn more while you exercise because your heart rate is elevated. So there's a lot of things to consider in pregnancy, that you do burn through quite a lot of food. And obviously the baby needs quite a lot of nutrients, and so do you. SIJ pain was definitely something that ailed me for the first trimester and half of the second. So it was pain through my SIJ, quite significant to the point where I was having trouble walking. I found closing my walking gait helped out with that. My massage therapist was amazing. He was very helpful in this process of teaching me how to walk, full pregnancy, to not waddle. Some other things that helped out with that was not doing too much isolation work in my program, so my training, so not isolating my left and right leg. Uh, a belly belt. I invested in a belly belt just to keep my hips together and stable. So I wear that if the SIJ pain is playing up too much, but it's been really good the last, yeah, I'd say 10 weeks or so. I've definitely got a significant amount of respite from it. Changing, the way I sleep, etc. as well, making sure I sleep on the left-hand side because it's the safest for baby, so that we don't restrict blood flow through that vena cava vein, which is that main, if I think I've said that properly, but the main blood supply to, the uterus. So reflux was another one. So I've got a hernia in my stomach, at the top of my stomach, and it obviously hasn't gone away. I went to a recent OB appointment. I think it was probably the 20-week mark. I was struggling with reflux. I was on Gaviscon, and she put me on this incredible medication. I got no idea what it's called. I have to have a look at it. It starts with R. It's great. Haven't had reflux since. No burning. I've had actually less reflux than I had before pregnancy. So I still get the occasional the feeling that you can't put a big meal in there because there's just no room. So there's that problem there. If there's too much food in your belly, you'll know about it. You just won't. You feel like you can't move or breathe, basically. And your stomach obviously is, it's sitting at the top here, and it's just so constricted. That's why bras aren't ideal as well, because that can really stuff around with reflux and that discomfort. I had irregular bloods when I first fell pregnant. I had elevated creatinine protein in my urine, and I had elevated HDL. Basically, it's just a sign. I was supplementing creatine at the time. It's just a sign that I was training heavily with my resistance training. To anyone else, it would look like I had kidney damage, but I didn't, because I didn't get enough of those high test positives in a row. And as soon as I took my creatine out of my diet, obviously, when I was pregnant, I wasn't going to take creatine. Took the creatine out of my diet, reduced my protein intake just slightly, and obviously reduced my training volume. So just tried to not train as heavy or hard, obviously, because I wasn't bulking anymore. And it resolved itself upon the next bloods. I did recently have blood tests done though, and I had borderline low iron, so it was on the lower end, which I've never had in my whole life. Here I am eating red meat every day, going, why am I getting this low iron, reading? So what I did to change that was increase my my red meat amount. So I was eating around 150 grams a day of red meat. I'm now eating 200 grams, and I'm also consuming it with tomato and capsicum because they're high in vitamin C to increase the absorption of the iron. You can supplement iron, but it's just so important to remember that your food will be more readily available and absorbed than a supplement will. So the red meat will do you the world of good if you consume it with vitamin C. Again, just a little problem that I saw and identified, and I fixed myself. I didn't need someone to give me that advice. I knew this with my allied health nutritional background. And also in that most recent blood test, interestingly enough, this is something that a lot of pregnant women don't realize, but had elevated cholesterol and HDL again. So my HDL wasn't as high, but definitely was high-ish. Just a sign of tissue damage, just a small amount, nothing crazy. But again, this is something that will sometimes, and for those who are bodybuilders, when you do fall pregnant, you're going to flag with some things that look abnormal but that aren't, because you're not the everyday population. So things like, muscle damage is very normal for somebody who is training in resistance training. So again, there was no problem. Slightly higher creatinine again, but because of the higher protein intake with the training the training regime I'm on. And then I think I had slightly elevated cholesterol. Now, most people would panic and think, oh no, cholesterol, you're eating saturated fats, terrible. But fun fact, don't get your cholesterol tested through pregnancy. You will get false positives, and through breastfeeding you get false positives for high cholesterol, and it's just you have heightened triacylglycerol stores because you have more fat in the blood to, yes, give your baby more fats. It's crazy. So there you go. And my OB was reassuring of this as well when I was looking into it. Circulation issues. So honestly, if you think about it, there hasn't been many things I haven't experienced. Circulation issues. Have had some issues with numbness of the arms, falling asleep, everything like that. Sometimes I get numbness in my arms just without even trying to when I'm driving and the like, which is carpal tunnel is very common through pregnancy. Circulation issues with my feet. I realised I couldn't walk in shit shoes because I did for about 10,000 steps and I paid for it for a whole week. I was in a lot of pain. So learning how to elevate feet. And the interesting thing is too is they tell you, oh, it's really good for you to go for walks, but also elevate your feet. So the fun thing about pregnancy is there's a lot of contradictory messages where it's like, do this, but also do this, but don't do this, but also do this. And it gets very confusing because you're thinking to yourself, how do I do all of these things simultaneously while still following the rules? Wild. So, yeah, definitely got some compression socks for that as well. So when the swelling is a little bit worse, I wear compression socks around the house, which is just fabulous in summer. And got some Birkenstocks thanks to my massage therapist again. He's incredible. He's really great. He's great with human movement and postural stuff. And he's put me on some Birks. And I never thought I would get some mum Birks, but I did. And I have no regrets. So there you go. I succumbed. Um, Swollen, hard, sore breasts and nipples. Again, this is all normal stuff. But, I had particularly really hot ones. And I don't know why, but they're just really they're hotter than the rest of my body, which is not great for Alex or myself. So, and that's just been through the whole pregnancy. It just hasn't gone away, and it probably won't, obviously, until after I finish breastfeeding. Heart trouble. So the last week, I actually found as soon as the swelling subsided in my feet, I started getting this really weird um, increased heart rate when standing and completely dropping when seated. Now I've got to remember what the name for it is, but basically it's a type of hypertension and hypotension, so it's both basically high and low heart rate, and it can be misidentified as preeclampsia. I wasn't getting the headaches. I wasn't feeling sick. I was feeling, yes, absolutely, like the blood was rushing to my chest and my head, but from seated to standard, and there was no sort of change in what I was doing. And this is again a circulation thing. So if you're wearing tops that are too tight, sometimes, if your bra is too tight or your pants are too tight or too firm, it can then obviously cut off that circulation. And then we have those issues with heart rate. So, that variable heart rate comes into play. Also, just in general, I found it was worse if I had trained, say, 2 or 3 days in a row and I hadn't taken a decent amount of rest. Needing to drink a significant amount of water to get it to go away, and also, weirdly enough, sodium. So I had some extra salt and some sugars, so some carbs to get my blood sugars up, and it actually resolved itself. So, and the interesting thing too is because a lot of this stuff can sometimes be identified as preeclampsia. Oh, you've got a high heart rate, you've immediately got high blood pressure. But if anything, I was going into the OB and I kept recording with low blood pressure. So, again, as athletes, we sometimes face the weirdest issues with pregnancy that are not the same as what others will face, because we're not in a position where we are over consuming calories, where we are not exercising. It's the other way around. So we're using more sodium, we need probably a little bit more salt. There's all this advice to reduce your salt intake through pregnancy, but if you're exercising significantly and the baby's requiring a lot of electrolytes and water, you actually need a bit more. So it depends per person as well, what your own individual endocrine system is doing. There's a lot in play here, but the great thing is that I successfully identified it for what it was when it was happening. And if I had have identified it as preeclampsia, it could have gone the other way. So the great thing is that I identified it as what can also be, if it's persistent, something called POTS, which is something that can arise outside of pregnancy as well. But I did find that, again, as I said, hydration played a huge role, not overexerting myself, played a huge role, making sure I was, had enough sodium and carbohydrates, sugars to get my blood to circulate properly, and obviously not having those constricting clothing. Um, Vivid dreams and nightmares has been a huge thing. So every night I dream vividly, and the strangest things too, really awful dreams. It's crazy what pregnancy does, but it literally turns you into uh, weirdly, without you even realizing that you're paranoid about everything. Well, I was, and I've got a hold of it now, but very calm during the day, very relaxed, but yeah, having very vivid dreams and nightmares at night, which my partner is very good with. He's very comforting when it happens. Discomfort while sleeping, obviously, we toss and turn. The baby kicks us at random hours, but that's been less of an issue. She doesn't seem to wake up much while I'm sleeping, which is good. Um, but just in general, getting comfortable, you can only sleep on your left hand side. And because if you try to sleep on your right or your back, you're not meant to after 28 weeks, it definitely leaves you limited and feeling like you're sick of sleeping on your left hand side. Can't sleep on your tummy. And you feel hot all the time while you're sleeping. In this process as well, like, we've managed other challenges. Like Alex hurt his back really badly again. He re-injured it, so he couldn't do any yard work. We were trying to build flat packs. A pregnant woman and a guy with a injured back, and then putting all the rubbish out and all the big rubbish trips and everything like that. And our neighbour was really lovely one day, and obviously could tell that Alex wasn't able to do yard work, and he whippersnipped our front lawn for us. He's done it twice now to keep snakes away, which is really nice. Um, it took him about 2 weeks for that back to heal up. Again, shout out to my massage therapist who looks after both of us and helped Alex out with some rehab. And we've definitely changed Alex's training, or I've helped adjust his training because he was doing his own training just in this little interim. And I've come in and given him some stuff to actually help protect his back. So it's working well so far. Um, Feeling her kicks was honestly one of the best things. I did feel them early at 14 weeks, and I'm not saying that because want to show off or anything. I just felt her kick at 14 weeks. I got told as a first time mum I wouldn't, so that was interesting. But I have videos of it. I have videos of my tummy doing these little movements, and placenta was at the back. I think it's at the top now, but it was at the back. She's very close to my skin. I don't have a lot of body fat there, so it was kind of a no-brainer that eventually I would feel her. And she's very active, so I'm not surprised that I felt her that early. She gets the hiccups all the time, 3, 4, 5 times a day. Doesn't like the dark. As soon as I put the blanket over her at night, she starts kicking the crap out of me. So something handy to know for when she's out. I have no stretch marks on my belly, but I have new ones on my hips. So of all places, I have not gotten any on my stomach, but there are. I already had a lot of them on my hips, like around the side here, and they've kind of extended, to my underwear line, so you can't even see them where they are, and they're tiny. They're not purple. Yeah, it's just. I think stretch marks are a very normal part of life, so I don't think it's really been that bothersome for me. Even the idea if I was to get them on my stomach, I wouldn't be that bothered. Um, I've been welcomed into a community. That's been something I didn't expect. I expected coming into pregnancy and obviously motherhood to come. Uh, Not that I guess not. I guess when I was on the outside previously, not pregnant, that I always felt like I wasn't a part of something and I was missing out, or that I would never fully understand, and that's true. I probably would never have fully understood. But I so yearned to be a part of it, not to have a baby to be a part of it, but more so to understand other mothers. And it's been really nice. You know, for the most part, 95% of the women I've spoken to have been wonderful, kind, generous with their time. I haven't asked a lot of questions, but I've certainly been given a lot of information. and but it's been nice to share stories. I think that's one thing I really liked is, mums who tell me interesting things about their pregnancies and about their kids. And it's no one will ever love your children as much as you do. That's one thing that I definitely stand by, is that you can expect them to, or want them to, but the truth is they're not theirs, so they won't. But it's nice to hear these little things, these little stories and experiences. So the community has been fantastic, certainly in the social media realm and space. There's been, as I said, there's been an overwhelming amount of information. And honestly, like if you listen to this podcast or vlog and you say to yourself, oh, I'd love to tell Mariah something about pregnancy or, a tip, please don't. I love you guys, but if you give me any more tips, I think I'll explode with tips, because the matter of the fact is that every baby, every mother, every family is very different. And the thing is too, is some of the issues that arise for some people may not arise for others. You might find different approaches work for you, as people have said previously. The best advice I've received is two pieces of advice actually I've received, and uh, the best piece was, the first one was, don't listen to anyone else's advice. Just do your own thing. Everyone's going to try and tell you how to parent. Just do what you got to do. And the second piece was, if people try to tell you how to parent your child or what to do in what circumstance or situation, or tell you you're doing something wrong, or they kind of jump on you for things, tell them to fuck off. So, and I know that sounds really harsh, because I know that certainly there would be people out there going, oh, but safety and this and that, and there's no, but what about this? And it's like, yes, the the moral of the story is that every parent is responsible for their child, and it's their responsibility to do what is right by their child. And so we can't just assume that our way or the highway, and it's from everything from the books I've read a couple of books, and the interesting thing is that they always give advice, but they always say, that there is no handbook that is accurate, and there's guidance, and there's, we know this now, but this could change in science. And I think that has been a huge part of the learning curve, is understanding that we know this much about pregnancy so far, and we're working off what we think we know. And of course, it will maybe change as the years go by. And with parenting, it's not too dissimilar, you know. Um, so, one thing I do like hearing from people is people asking how I'm going. Are you okay? How are you feeling? You know, are you okay? How's your mental health? How is Alex going? How is his mental health? Because if you understand us, Alex and I, we are incredibly driven people. We're well educated. We're successful. We do well for ourselves in our business, in our career. But we are those types of people that if we don't know something, we will research the hell out of it until we know enough, that we know as much as we can, and that we have lots of different options, so that we're not boxing ourselves in. We're people who like to see both sides of an argument as well, or not an argument, but a debate. Definitely scientific evidence to support practice as well, and the like. So um, yeah, and we're also not, we don't walk into things going, oh, everything is right and everything is wrong. And we certainly don't like to interfere with other people's lives or tell them how to parent their children. So I think it's something that for us, we're really enjoying discovering this, together. And but yeah, you do get those comments, don't you, from other parents? You just wait until you're sleep deprived, or you just wait until they're 13, or all the toddler stages, or and this is hard, and this is hard. And um, it's almost like I think they want you to be afraid of parenthood. I'm not quite sure. But more recently, as I've got further through the third trimester, I've had more people say, this will be so beautiful. You're going to be so excited to become a parent, and it's the most wonderful, rewarding experience. And that's it. I haven't, of course, I can't live with my head in the clouds. I'm fully aware. Babies wake up, they cry. You end up not knowing what to do, how to comfort them, and there's a lot of there should be a lot of awareness around postnatal depression for both mums and dads, because of the struggles that they go through those periods. This is why support is crucial from family members and friends, but also from health professionals, medical practitioners, reaching out, but also having that network of people who do check in on you and say, hey, how's everything going? Sometimes we don't need a solution, I don't think. Sometimes it's just that we need that support, someone to vent to, all that type of stuff. So, yeah. Um, I've been obviously reading quite a lot of books, actually on self-development and pregnancy. So I kind of, when I get sick of reading about pregnancy things, I read about self-development, which is a nice contrast. Um, but I read a whole one on pregnancy itself, so I got all the way through to the end, which is great, all the way through to 42 weeks. It was very funny, up the duff. It was good. One of my old clients and a good friend of mine bought it for me and sent it through, and I think one of the funniest things I've read in a while. And very informative, great. I went from knowing absolutely fuck all about babies, and now I think I have a sound understanding. I'm sure I'll learn a lot more. And the second book I've just started reading, Eat, Parent, Love, or something like that. I can't remember what it's exactly called, but it was written by a doctor, and she's very funny as well. So I'm not going to go into reading, really deep, meaningful parenting books. You don't know what your child is going to be like until they grow, and that's just a time thing. Um, so the other thing I've struggled with is when falling pregnant, and even throughout the pregnancy as well, I found it hard. I guess like I've found it hard to talk about pregnancy, because I feel like I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to bore people. I don't want people to, she's talking about baby shit again. You know, I've never been a person, even prior to pregnancy, who was like, I'm going to be that mum who is completely obsessed with pregnancy and babies and children and my family. And don't get me wrong, like, family is so important, but I still have an identity. And something I learned quite early on in my own childhood, my mother always taught me to have an identity and to keep it. Um, but yeah, I've been very mindful of trying not to talk about pregnancy too much, but also weirdly, I've been praised every time I do it. You know, other mums are kind of clapping, and people who aren't mums are going, yeah, like hell yeah, you know, go girl. And I think it's been nice. It's been nice to not feel like I have to constantly, you know, hide it. But also, I don't talk about it 24/7. It's just imagine being pregnant. That, you know, you are. So you kind of don't have a choice to think about it. You wake up every day and the first thing you think about is your baby, and you go to sleep and the last thing you think about is your baby. And that's very natural and very normal, and that's okay. You know, no mother should ever feel bad for that because it's instinctive. And you can do the other things too. You can manage your career. It's all possible. Going along to things like baby expos, it wasn't actually as overwhelming as I thought it would be. It's actually fun. Touring childcare centres. We went to a childcare centre yesterday. That was hilarious. Like, it was hilarious because I've never stepped foot into one. And it was cool. Like, we kind of rocked up. And it's so funny. Like, there's kids everywhere. And well, I was just out of my comfort zone fully. And this little boy was the childcare center was just so beautiful. He was so inquisitive and he just wanted to be friends with Alex and I. And I think it really softened the experience for us because we realized, oh, they're just so sweet. It's so interesting and so weird, but so funny. And we left feeling really warm about the experience and obviously learning, but you know, so looking at childcare and stuff and researching like nannies for home and all sorts of stuff. We've obviously got a few things coming up. Like I'm doing a belly mold. I mean, stay tuned. I'm doing a belly mold. I might even do a video of this, like a reel of the process of doing it. I don't know. Doing a belly mold. Um, some people might think this is weird, but like just doing a full belly mold of my belly and my bodice to keep in the house. It's very expensive to do an actual genuine belly mold, not a plaster, just plaster like casing one. This is a stone mold. So it's literally going to be a statue. I won't tell you how much it was. It was more than I think I should have paid, but there's only 5 people in the country who do it, who provide the materials. So that's coming up, I think, on the 35th week. Planning my own baby shower as well. So something that I've simultaneously really loved and enjoyed, but also kind of resented. And I don't like to talk too much about this because I don't want to be too negative. But a baby shower traditionally is meant to be planned for you by your friends and family, and I didn't have that experience. Probably because I'm super independent and controlling of everything, but I didn't have anyone offer. You know, I have since had friends, you know, when I've talked about it, they want to help me out with the baby games and setting up on the day and stuff like that, which is lovely. But again, I've been the person who's been liaising with the event organizer. We've organized everything for the day now. I literally only have to now. Alex is going to order the cake and cookies. I'm having it a bit later. I know traditionally you're probably not meant to have it that late, but I want to. I haven't really looked very pregnant, like properly big, so I'm kind of waiting until I'm as big as possible, which is probably not very smart, but whatever. Doing what I want. So having it in the park with our close friends and family. Very much looking forward to it. It's been not as stressful with an event organizer, for sure. But by the same token, you know, deep down, like this is the stuff you come across in pregnancy. I would have loved for someone to go, I will help you do your baby shower for you. You know, I will do it for you. You just sit back and relax and I'll just ask you what you know, and you can pay for it, obviously. We're not going to ask someone else to pay for it, but I didn't get that experience. And I was a bit shitty about it, but then I kind of got over it and now I realize that a lot of the reason why people probably don't, you know, say, look, would you like some help is because usually I say no anyway, so it's a catch-22. And that's the interesting thing about people who are very independent. We love being independent. We, you know, almost like, I don't know, we want to solve things ourselves. I've always been like this since I was little. You know, I'm really actually dreading the fact that my child might be like me. Super independent, but then also we have this yearning to be vulnerable and to actually allow people to help us. So there you go. Maternity shoot as well, so that's coming up. I'm working with the Wonderful Life Portraits She's just amazing. I've been shooting with her and my teams for such a long time now. So it seemed appropriate. She originally started doing maternity shoots. So I thought, why not? That was where she started. So we'll do that nice maternity shoot with myself and Alex. So I actually want to do it with him. And then we've got also a newborn shoot. So we don't know when we're going to do that, but it will be definitely, obviously, once she's out. I will try to breastfeed. I'll try for a natural birth. I say try because I think a lot of mothers put pressure on themselves that I'm going to breastfeed, and breast is best. And of course it is. And, and a natural birth. I'm sure that many mothers would advocate for their natural births, or some mothers, I know mothers who booked in C-sections prior because they don't want to go through the birthing process. I'm a big believer in, I will try for a natural birth. And if, of course, if there is a complication or if I'm in that much pain, I'm like, that's it, I can't do this. Or, I think I will be able to. I'm obviously a very resilient, stoic person, but I just don't know. I've never been through this thing before. I've never been through this experience. So for me, I think just having the baby, getting the baby out and, both of us being alive by the end of it would be ideal. So for me, I'm less focused on the nitty gritty details of whether I'll be able to successfully breastfeed. We've got lactation consultant appointments. My massage therapist's wife, she's a breastfeeding expert. So there's plenty of help. My mother breastfed me for 3 years. So I really do have probably enough connections with breastfeeding to be able to get there. But by the same token, even with all the connections in the world, there is still that off chance that you may not be able to get there, and that is okay too. There's just a lot of, I think, unnecessary pressure on women and mothers to exemplify this perfect pregnancy and postpartum journey, and you're not required. Please don't ever buy into that. Maternity clothes, oh God, I have not actually bought any specific maternity clothes yet. I kind of swore to myself I wouldn't. I've only bought normal clothes that are more stretchy around the tummy, like, loose fit clothes I can wear afterwards, tights that are more stretchy around the tummy and higher, bras that are a size up that will fit my boobs. But for the most part, I don't think I bought anything from a maternity specific label for clothing because I don't like any of them. So I just buy normal clothes, but a size up or something that's more stretchy, and it's worked very well for me so far. Um, Mind you, though, like, dressing for a bump as well has been a really interesting process, and I'll talk a bit about that later on because there was an experience I had in a shop that really rocked me over the weekend. But again, lucky I'm not super sensitive. My partner has said some interesting things to me during pregnancy, some lovely things, but some very interesting things as well, which I think that if I was more sensitive, I would definitely struggle with. Um, he's lucky I can. He's lucky he's cute, and when he laughs, I end up laughing as well. Um, I'll tell you this, right, and this is just snuck into the podcast, and he will never live this down. One day, I think we were talking about, when a cow or heifer goes from a heifer to being a cow or cow to heifer, something like that, after they've given birth. And so I said, I can't remember, but I said something about breastfeeding, and he said something about udders, referring to my breasts. Not that they are, but as udders. And I looked at him, and I swear to God, I had like this look it was a look of death. He was going to die if he said anything else. And I think I've told almost all of our friends about his udder reference. And I think that it's funny because I don't say all the lovely things he says. He calls me beautiful on a daily basis. He rubs my tummy, he kisses my tummy, talks to, our baby. We've got a name. We decided her name at 4.5 weeks, 5 weeks. Didn't even know she was a girl. I did. I knew from the start. That's why I was so set on the name. But yeah, we both decided the name together, so it's there in some letters up on the wall, ready to go up above her crib/cot. But Tangent, my partner, has been honestly a saint through this entire process. Has been very patient with me being cranky sometimes. Has been very patient with the process, and I'll talk about relationship stuff in a bit. So obviously managing self-image and self-worth was a huge thing. In the beginning, I think it was just kind of accepting the fact that my body was going to change, accepting the fact that I had to try and find a way to feel sexy, which is still very difficult, never changes, through pregnancy, and embrace the bump. And it's beautiful, but to feel sexy whilst having a bump is very difficult when my idea of sexy previously was very different. So managing identity changes as well, I think that in the beginning I noticed, and I actually saw this from the perspective of future mothers, is how differently people automatically treat you as you become a mother. And I think it's wrong. You know, they start assuming things like your capabilities. They start asking questions about, when you're going on maternity leave and when you're coming back and how long you're taking, and which is none of anybody's business. And if it is something that's going to happen, I think obviously you tell people, I'm going on maternity leave. This is what's happening. Someone's taking over for me. The way I'm going to work things is that I'm actually going to offset some of the admin side of things to my virtual assistant, which I love my virtual assistant so much. But basically just going to offset some of that. I've got some big changes happening in my business, which actually will allow me to take more time away from the business fairly soon, which is awesome. But also I'll still be in the business. So it's the amazing part of this journey is that I'm learning how to transition into parenthood, still be able to be a really efficient and diligent coach, and I have been through this whole process, but also learning how to give back to myself and not burn myself out like I have done in previous times. Um, but yeah, the assumptions. I think the assumptions were really big in the beginning, and the interesting thing is, I think that it's funny. People actually push you and test you in the beginning. Oh, will you sure you be able to do this and blah, 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 and will you still run the business and all that type of stuff. But then they watch you doing it, and everyone shuts the fuck up. It's great. It's almost like they eat their own words. It's like shoving a sock in their mouth. Like, watch me go. So I've just kind of plodded along and kept doing what I'm doing, still doing my content, still doing my vlogs, still coaching at the same capacity. My client retention has been fantastic. I've retained, I think 37 one-on-one clients. I think I've got 15 or so in Fierce at the moment, so collectively over 50 or something like that. And I've only got 3 spaces available for one-on-one coaching at the moment anyway, and I'm filling one of them next week. So, and I'm not urgently doing that. I won't take any more on than 40 one-on-one at the moment. I think that's plenty. Um, so again, I've not been impacted from a work perspective. The quality of my work has not changed. Showing up as a coach, that's not changed because I haven't perceived myself that way. I haven't, assumed that that would happen. And it was weird because it was like people were barking at me, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And it didn't. And I almost felt like messaging the people that had, come at me so strongly and going, fuck you, man. Like, how dare you put me in a headspace where you made me doubt myself, even though nothing terrible had happened yet, or nothing even remotely threatening to my business or my career or my coaching or my uni. Um, I've completed 2 full case studies through this process, and I got, distinctions and high distinctions, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it was high distinctions for both. I'm still doing exams. I'm still doing intensive biochemistry study. As I said previously in another podcast, my sister completed her PhD while she was pregnant. And we had a massive chat about it. And I said, how did you cope with this when she had a man walk up to her in one of her presentations and said, you won't finish this PhD while pregnant? And it gutted her because she hadn't done anything or said anything that would have deemed that to be an appropriate comment. And it was just because she had a tummy. And so I think this needs to change. I think, yes, absolutely, we talk about baby brain and the like, but it's interesting, the baby brain doesn't apply to things that you're very diligent and good at. Things that you're studious with your work. My brain is just on, it's wired all the time. Like, I've found the opposite in pregnancy. I've been, this nursery is completely done. Like, there's nothing else, and I'm 30 weeks. Haven't forgotten a single thing. I've had itinerary, I've had lists, I've had times and dates, and it is almost like I have this laser focus for what I'm doing at any given point in time. What I have found though is that stuff that I guess like that you don't really think about, just boring shit. Like, one thing that I did that I've never done before is we were driving along, coming back from a date, Alex and I, a mini golf date together, which was nice. Um, and we got pulled over by the police. This was about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, like maybe they profiled him because he's got tattoos or whatever. Pulled us over, and no one knows that this happened. But and said, oh, your vehicle registration has been cancelled. And I was like, what? That can't be right. Anyway, it turns out, I said like, have I not paid my registration? And I thought to myself, and I thought, when was the last time I paid my rego? And I was surely I think I paid a year in January, and so this was a couple of weeks ago. So what is it? January now, and no joke, they looked it up and it said it had expired, but it'd been 90 days, over 90 days, even longer since it had expired. And I hadn't. I don't remember receiving an email or a letter, and then apparently I'd opted to receive emails, but maybe I got it and deleted it. I don't know. I was so used to getting it in the mail, and I was so embarrassed. I don't think I've ever in my entire life not paid my rego. In fact, I haven't. And I've never even not paid a bill. I've always been on time with everything. It was all so strange to go through this experience. And I said to the police officers, I'm so embarrassed. And I said, look, I'm pregnant. And I said, look, I don't even think this was baby brain. I just think I've been so hyper focused. And that was what it was. I've been so hyper focused on everything else. And I looked back through my calendar dates. I've got all my bills in my calendar, and it wasn't there. And I thought, you know what I've probably done? I've probably seen an email from TMR and just deleted it and thinking it was spam. And that was it. There's something so simple. And that was to this date, I can guarantee and vouch for it, even my clients can as well, since the start of the pregnancy. That's the biggest mistake I've made, and even the only mistake. Like, I haven't fucked up at all. There's just been no mistakes. And this was something that really rocked me because I thought, oh God, I've been so immersed in my career, in, the pregnancy, in trying to have everything perfect, that I don't know, somehow deleted an email from the Queensland Department of Transport. So that was fun. So we had to get it. Oh, and I felt awful. We had to go get it roadworthy done, and it was all good. It was all fixed by the following day, and and they were lovely. The police actually let me go. So there you go. It was really nice with them. I wouldn't have expected them to do that. They have huge fines as well. Um, Irrational fears around loss and safety of the baby have been really big. So like things like when her movement slowed down, or the other day she was having a big tantrum and just cracking the shits for no reason. And so sometimes I think as mothers, like potential future mothers, we all kind of go through those moments where we're like, oh, is everything okay? And that's happened a lot through pregnancy. Not all the time, but certainly it has happened. Last night I was a bit worried she hadn't moved as much, and then all of a sudden she started moving again. About half an hour later. She likes my voice though, apparently. Whenever I'm talking, like I do a vlog, she's still all the way through. She's just nice and quiet, which is comforting for future vlogs that she might nap through them. Early fears about becoming a mother. Certainly, I look back and I've journaled all the way through. So I journal weekly and I write to the baby and I write things about, and Alex does as well. He writes his little things in there as well. But I write about feelings and experiences. This great journal called Becoming Mama. I really enjoyed writing in it. I draw in it as well, everything like that on a Sunday. Take that time to journal. But I was so afraid of becoming a mother because I didn't have maternal instincts really, and I doubted myself maternally. And then I realized I've got so many clients and I'm very maternal towards them. What's going to stop me from being this way towards my own child? To be caring and loving, and to give them my knowledge, and to watch them grow, and to encourage them and support them. And I realized it's no different, but obviously little people are, but it's no different in the type of intense love and care and kindness that I give in coaching and supporting others. So that was really helpful to realize that this narrative I convinced myself that I wasn't going to be maternal was just me. That was it. It was just me because I haven't held babies. I've never had any sort of experience with bubbies. I have when I was younger a little bit with some of my friends that had children earlier, but really not enough. I have not had younger nieces and nephews, so this is the only baby that will be in my life for a prolonged period of time, and that was scary. But now it's kind of exciting because I'm like, oh, this is just a new journey. Um, yeah, and obviously things like I held a baby yesterday, my friend's baby, beautiful Baba. Um, but I was just like, I held her and I was so confident in taking her, and I was so confident in knowing what to do with her and everything like that. And it actually was something I was wanting to do. I wanted to hold her. So that's good because I know that there's that connection happening now. Even when she was having a little bit of a cry, I actually liked it. So weird. Like I really liked hearing her cry because I don't know why, but maybe that's part of the pregnancy is like we're conditioning ourselves now to be ready and be open to that. Um, I obviously was going through situations as well, like, and I spoke about this very briefly recently, but not prioritizing my meal times, not eating when I needed to, and that's something I felt pretty guilty for, is just kind of getting a bit too immersed in my work as I always do, but to the point where I was not looking after myself as well as I should have. So I've started putting up healthy boundaries again with my time, with my clients, and just really making sure that I take my weekends off. And if you are a client listening to this podcast, if you ever do sense that sometimes on weekends I get to a point where I'm a little bit irritable, it is because there is constant interruption sometimes, and I can't even be on my own social media page without people messaging me about work, or and they say I'll just reply Monday. And it is very hard when you're trying to have another life, have a life that isn't work related, switch your mind off from work, and then you're back on work again. And I'm on my phone working and messaging, and all the time adds up. Alex is standing there next to me going, we've got to go, like we're going somewhere, or we're doing something together. I thought we were meant to be spending time together. And he has had to go on the back burner a lot in the last 3 years. The amount of times I've worked instead of doing something with him, or where I've been late for something because I've been working, or I've been stuck with a client. So, that's a big thing that I've tried to change this year, is I'm looking at being a little bit more effective with my time. If a conversation is going on with a client for an hour or two, you think you pay me a weekly fee, it's gone in that hour or two, and then we've got your check-in as well. And so it's not that the communication isn't essential, of course it is, but it's also up to me to be able to put the boundaries up, the healthy boundaries, and say to people, even at the gym, hey, look, I can't stop and talk. I've got to go. I've got to train. This is my time for me. So definitely something that I'm working very strongly on. I did last week. I decided that I was a little bit over feeling like I was I love my work, but I felt like that um, I was a source of other people's happiness and support, and we absolutely are, but we're a tap that sometimes needs to turn off. So sometimes it is about putting that space, healthy space between us and clients, and it helps us become better coaches, because then we're not bitter, we're not nasty. Not that I would ever be nasty, but I think sometimes you don't realize that um, you might send an email to someone, make a phone call to someone, send someone a message with a question, or something like that, but you don't know how many other people have done that to them that day, or how much, their stress load is. And so we often try and mask that as much as possible. But obviously what we do is support people, is supporting is very taxing. It is incredibly taxing. And so we have to be very smart with the hours that we give to that and the hours that we don't, and be very clear with that as well. Um, I've been making healthy food choices all the way through. People have asked me about my cravings, fruit, yogurt. Like, it's not been anything weird. Pickles here and there, some salty things, plain rice crackers, cheese, rice crackers, cheese, dairy, but it's really not been any sort of, that's making me want dairy now. Nothing wild. Absolutely nothing wild. I've had the occasional takeaway meal. It's not been something that I've lived off of, once a week, if that. And sometimes I'll go weeks without it through the pregnancy. It's just whole foods I've been consuming. So I do talk about that a little bit in my social media posts too. But I've actually been eating like a wide array of foods and variety now than I was before, which is really interesting.